Ethan Vale stood at the edge of the alien settlement, watching the orange sun sink behind broken hills of glass and stone. The world was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that came after too many wars, when people learned to speak softly and listen hard. He wore human armor, old and scarred, repaired many times with alien metals. The armor was heavy, but he did not mind. It reminded him why he was here. Behind him, the village slowly came alive with evening sounds. Soft lights bloomed like small stars. Tall, curved homes made of living crystal glowed with gentle colors. This place was not Earth, and it never would be, but it was the closest thing he had to home. Human, your face looks like a cracked rock. Ethan did not turn. He already knew the voice. Lyra stood a few steps away, her hands on her hips, her long tail flicking behind her. She was small for her kind, with bright silver eyes and skin the color of pale blue stone. A child, but sharp and fearless. He answered calmly. "Rocks are strong," she snorted. "Only when they are not ugly." A few nearby villagers paused, watching to see what the human warrior would do. Many feared him at first, some still did, but Ethan only nodded. "Then I will stand still," he said. Lyra laughed loudly, clearly pleased with herself. She walked in a slow circle around him, peering at his armor. "You humans are strange," she said. "You never smile. Do your faces break if you do?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Maybe." She leaned closer, trying to see his reaction. "I bet you cry when no one is watching." The villagers held their breath. Ethan knelt down so he was closer to her height. His voice stayed soft. "Only when I lose something important." Lyra blinked. For just a second her teasing stopped. Then she rolled her eyes. "You're boring," she said, and ran off toward her home. The villagers relaxed. One elder shook his head. "She has no fear." Ethan watched the child disappear into the glowing streets. "She shouldn't have to." That night, alarms screamed. Red light flashed across the settlement. Old defense towers rose from the ground, humming with power that had not been used in years. Raiders. Ethan moved before anyone finished shouting his name. He ran toward the outer wall, boots striking stone, armor locking into combat mode. His rifle powered up, familiar and steady in his hands. Alien figures appeared in the sky, descending fast, the same enemies as before, the ones who burned worlds and took children. Ethan's jaw tightened. He took position at the weakest section of the wall, where crystal had cracked during an earlier attack. Energy fire lit the darkness. He returned fire with careful shots, each one chosen, each one deadly. Behind him, villagers fled toward shelters. Mothers called for their children. "Lyra!" Ethan heard the name and turned his head just in time to see her stumble near the open square. She had tripped, her small body tangled in panic and noise. An enemy drone shifted direction. Ethan did not think, he ran. A blast struck the ground where Lyra had been standing. Ethan threw himself over her, his armor absorbing the worst of the impact. Pain flared through his side, sharp and hot. Lyra screamed. He rolled, pulling her close, shielding her until the danger passed. Then he pushed her gently toward the shelter entrance. "Run," he said. Now her eyes were wide. "You're bleeding." "I'll catch up." She hesitated. Someone grabbed her and pulled her inside. Ethan stood again, blood darkening his armor, and returned to the fight. The raid did not last long. It never did when humans were involved. By morning, the enemy was gone. Ethan sat on the steps of the medical hall while a healer worked on his wounds. The pain was manageable. It always was. Across the square, Lyra watched him. She did not come close this time, she just stared. Her mother, Sailra, stood beside her. Tall, strong, her commander markings faded but still visible. Her eyes followed Ethan with a look that held many memories. "He saved you," Sailra said quietly. Lyra nodded. "He always does." Sailra closed her eyes for a moment. Later that day, Ethan tried to leave the settlement as he often did after fights. He preferred the silence outside the walls, but small footsteps followed him. "You limp when you think no one is watching," Lyra said. He stopped, You shouldn't sneak up on soldiers. You shouldn't get shot, she replied. He almost smiled. She walked beside him for a while. Why do you stay here, she asked. You could go back to your human worlds. He looked at the horizon. Someone needs to stay. Why you? Because I promised. To who? Ethan did not answer. Lyra kicked a stone. You're weird. Yes, she looked up at him. You're still ugly. I know, she sighed, but you're not boring. They stood in silence. That night, Sailra watched Ethan from her doorway as he stood guard, injured but unmoving. She remembered a battlefield long ago. Fire, screams. A human carrying her through smoke while holding her unborn child close. She remembered a promise whispered through blood and pain. I will protect her. In the distance, Ethan shifted his stance, eyes scanning the dark. He did not know Lyra was watching him too, from her window, wondering why the human warrior always stayed between her and the night. The days after the raid passed slowly, but the fear did not leave the settlement. People repaired walls, rebuilt towers, and whispered about the enemy's return. Children were kept close. Guards doubled their shifts. Ethan Vale remained. He always did. He stood at the outer wall every morning before the first light touched the crystal homes. His armor was repaired, but his body still carried pain. He ignored it. Pain meant he was alive. Pain meant he could still protect. Lyra noticed everything. She noticed that Ethan always stood where the wall was weakest. She noticed that when alarms tested, his hand moved to his weapon before the sound finished. She noticed that he always looked at the children first, counting them with his eyes. She stopped teasing him as much. Not completely. She was still a child. One afternoon, she followed him beyond the settlement walls. The land outside was broken and quiet. Black glass fields stretched far, shining under the pale sky. This place had once been green, her mother said, before the war. You're not allowed out here alone, Ethan said without turning. Lyra froze. How did you know? You breathe louder when you're curious, she frowned. That's not fair. He glanced back at her. Go home. She crossed her arms. Make me. For a moment he considered arguing. Then he sighed. Stay close. Her eyes widened. Really? Yes, but don't wander. She smiled, quick and bright, and stayed right at his side. They walked in silence for a while. The wind moved softly across the glass fields, making a sound like distant chimes. Did you fight a lot? Lyra asked. Yes. Did you like it? No. Why did you do it then? Ethan stopped walking. He looked far ahead beyond the hills. Because if I didn't, someone else would suffer. Lyra kicked the glass gently. My teacher says humans are violent. Sometimes, Ethan said, but we are also stubborn. She thought about that. You are very stubborn. He nodded. They reached a high ridge where old defense cannons lay broken and silent. Ethan checked the area, scanning for movement. Do you miss your family? Lyra asked suddenly. The question hit harder than any weapon. Ethan took a slow breath. Yes. Where are they? Gone. She looked at him carefully. All of them? Yes. She did not tease him then. She sat down beside him instead. I don't remember my father, she said. Mother says he was brave. I believe her. Did you know him? Ethan's hands tightened. No, that was not a lie, not completely. They returned to the settlement before nightfall. Sailra watched them arrive together, her expression unreadable. That night, memories returned to her like old wounds opening. She remembered running through fire, her body weak, her unborn child burning with fear inside her. She remembered falling, unable to stand again. And then the human appeared. Ethan had been younger then, his armor newer, his eyes tired but focused. He had lifted her without hesitation, even as weapons fired around them. He had shielded her with his own body. You're hurt, she had whispered. So are you, he had replied. He had carried her for hours. When she begged him to leave her, he refused. I don't leave civilians, he said, especially not children. When the fighting ended and she survived, Ethan stayed. When he learned the child lived, he stayed longer. When Sailra told him the child's father had died, Ethan did not speak for a long time. I'll help, he said at last, however you need. She never asked him to stay forever. He chose to. The next raid came sooner than expected. This time it was larger. The alarm screamed louder longer. The sky filled with dark shapes blocking the light. Energy blasts shook the ground. Ethan moved fast, giving orders to alien guards who trusted his voice now more than their own fear. He sealed gates, redirected families, reinforced weak points. "Keep the children inside," he said. "No matter what." Lyra watched from a shelter window, her heart pounding. She saw Ethan fighting at the front, a single human standing against many. A blast knocked him back. She screamed his name. Sailra held her tightly. "Stay here." But Lyra pulled free and ran. She reached the square just as an enemy soldier broke through the line. It raised its weapon. Ethan turned, saw Lyra, and felt something break inside his chest. He ran. The weapon fired. Ethan threw himself forward, taking the hit. He fell hard, armor shattered, body unmoving. Lyra knelt beside him, shaking him. "Get up, you always get up." His eyes opened slowly. "Too close," he whispered. Enemy soldiers closed in. Then the sky roared. Human ships dropped from orbit like falling stars. Their weapons spoke with thunder. The ground shook as enemy forces were destroyed. The battle ended in minutes. Ethan was carried to the medical hall, barely conscious. Lyra refused to leave his side. "He saved us again," she said through tears. Sailra watched her child and felt the weight of truth pressing harder than ever. Ethan survived the night. When he woke, Lyra was asleep in a chair beside his bed, her hand gripping his armor strap. He did not move it away. Sailra entered quietly. "You should tell her," she said. Ethan closed his eyes. "Not yet. She deserves to know." "So do you," he replied softly, "but knowing changes things." Sailra looked at her child. "She already knows something." Ethan looked at Lyra, at the small hand holding on like she was afraid he might vanish. Outside, human ships hovered above the alien world, silent guardians in the dark. The promise made long ago still held. And the truth waited, heavy and close, for the moment it could no longer be hidden. The settlement did not celebrate after the second raid. There were no songs, no lights, no loud voices. People repaired what was broken and thanked the human ships in quiet ways. They had learned that survival was something to respect, not shout about. Ethan Vale healed slowly. His armor lay beside his bed, cracked and burned. His body carried deeper wounds this time. The healer said he should rest for many days. He tried. On the third day he sat up. On the fourth day he stood. On the fifth day he walked to the door. Lyra was there before anyone else noticed. "You're not allowed to move," she said, hands on her hips. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Is that an order?" "Yes," he almost smiled. She stepped closer, looking at the scars on his neck and face. "You got hurt because of me." "No," he said firmly. "I got hurt because I chose to stand." She did not argue. Instead, she hugged him suddenly, small arms tight around his middle. He froze. Then slowly, he placed a hand on her back. Sailra watched from a distance, her chest tight. The moment she had feared and delayed was no longer far away. She could see it in the way Lyra stayed close now, how she followed Ethan everywhere, how her teasing had turned into quiet concern. That night, the truth could not wait any longer. The stars were bright when Sailra called them both to the high platform overlooking the settlement. The air was calm. Human ships still hovered in orbit above, silent and watchful. Lyra sat on the ground, swinging her legs. Ethan stood a few steps behind her, as he always did. "Why are we here?" Lyra asked. Sailra took a slow breath. "Because there are things you need to understand," Lyra frowned. "Is this about the raids?" "Yes," Sailra said, "and about before them." She turned to Ethan. "And about him?" Lyra looked back at the human. "He's just Ethan. He's weird and ugly and never leaves." Ethan looked away, uncomfortable. Sailra stepped forward. "Lyra, do you remember when I told you your father died in the war?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, you said he was brave." "He was," Sailra said softly. "But bravery is not always the one who falls." Sometimes it is the one who stays. Lyra did not understand yet. What does that mean? Sayra's voice trembled. During the war, when everything was burning, when I could not walk, when I thought I would lose you before you were even born, a human soldier carried me. Lyra's eyes widened. He fought while holding me, Sayra continued. He shielded us with his own body. He refused to leave. She turned and looked directly at Ethan. That human was him. Lyra slowly stood up. Ethan? Ethan's voice was low. I was there. Sayra placed a hand over her heart. When you were born, I asked him nothing. I did not bind him with duty. I did not claim him, he chose. Lyra's breathing grew uneven. Chose what? Sayra swallowed. Then she spoke the words she had held inside for years. He chose to be your father. The world went silent. Lyra stared at Ethan, her mind racing. That's not funny, she said weakly. It is not a joke, Sayra replied. Lyra's voice shook. You're human, I'm not. Ethan stepped forward. Family is not made by blood alone. Tears filled her eyes. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid, Ethan said honestly. Afraid you would feel trapped. Afraid you would hate me, she clenched her fists. I teased you, he nodded. I know. I called you ugly. I know. I said you were boring, he almost smiled. Sometimes I am. Her voice broke. And you never left. No, he said. Never. Lyra took a shaky step toward him. Say it. He did not understand. Say what? She looked up at him, eyes full of fear and hope. Say you're my father. Ethan's throat tightened. The word felt heavy, sacred. I am, he said, if you want me to be. She ran into him, hugging him as hard as she could. He held her like he had once held her mother, like he had promised long ago. The sky suddenly flared with warning lights. Another attack. But this time the humans were ready. Ethan gently moved Lyra behind Sayra. Stay together. He turned toward the sound of battle, even wounded, even tired. Lyra grabbed his hand. Don't go alone. He looked back at her. I won't. Human soldiers joined him, not one, many. The enemy never reached the walls. From the platform, Lyra watched humans and aliens fight together, standing as one. She understood now why humans were feared and respected. They did not fight because they loved war. They fought because they loved what they protected. When the last enemy ship fell from the sky, silence returned. Ethan came back, injured again but standing. Lyra ran to him. You're terrible at staying safe. He laughed softly for the first time. I'm still learning. In the days that followed, something changed. The settlement no longer called Ethan the human warrior. They called him father, not because of orders or law, because he earned it. Lyra walked beside him proudly now, introducing him to others with a smile. This is my father, she said. He chose me. Ethan Vale looked at the alien world around him and finally felt something he had not felt in a long time. He was home.